My name is Eleanor Pruitt, and I am 33 years old. I work as a senior product strategist for a software company headquartered out of Chicago, though I do most of my work from a glass-walled office on the 42nd floor of a building that overlooks Lake Michigan. People who walk past my office on the way to the conference room sometimes pause to compliment the view. The lake in winter is the color of tarnished silver, and on clear afternoons I can see all the way out to where the water meets the horizon. I bought a leather chair for my office last year. Real leather, not the kind that peels after 18 months. I bought it because I wanted to feel, just once, like the things I owned actually belonged to me. From the outside, I think my life looks like a success story. A graduate of Northwestern. A salary that surprises me when I see it printed on the page. A 2-bedroom condo in Lincoln Park with a small balcony where I grow tomatoes in the summer. But the truth is that everything I have, I built on top of a childhood that scraped me hollow. I am the oldest of 4. 2 younger sisters, and a brother who came along when I was almost 12. My parents both worked. My father is a regional sales manager, and my mother is a part-time bookkeeper. And from the time I can remember, the running of our household fell to me. It started small, the way these things always do. My mother would ask me to watch my middle sister for 10 minutes while she ran to the post office. 10 minutes turned into an hour. An hour turned into an afternoon. By the time I was 9, I knew how to change a diaper and warm a bottle, and I had a step stool by the stove so I could stir whatever was in the pot when my mother forgot it was on the burner. I remember the first time I made dinner alone. I was 10. I made grilled cheese sandwiches and canned tomato soup, and when my parents came home and ate without saying thank you, my mother turned to me with this big smile on her face and said, "Eleanor, you are such a little woman already. We are so lucky to have you." That sentence got repeated my whole life. Every time someone needed something. Every time someone needed me to give up something. My mother would tilt her head, smile that same smile, and say, "Eleanor is such a little woman. Eleanor can handle it." By the time I was 13, I was packing lunches for my sisters before school, doing the laundry on weekends, and helping my brother learn to read at night because my mother said she was too tired after work. My middle sister and my younger sister had ballet lessons and gymnastics and birthday parties at the trampoline park. I had a binder where I kept track of all their schedules, color-coded with little stickers. I did not go to a single sleepover in middle school because there was always someone who needed picking up, or a meal that needed making, or a baby brother who would not stop crying unless I rocked him. I want to be clear about something. I loved my siblings. I still love them, I think, in a complicated and tired way. None of what happened was their fault when they were small. They were just kids. They did not ask to be born into a family where the oldest daughter was treated like an unpaid live-in nanny. The blame, if I am being honest with myself now, sits squarely on the people who are supposed to be the parents. The first real heartbreak I remember was the summer I turned 15. There was a music camp in northern Wisconsin, a 2-week intensive for kids who played the violin. I had been playing since I was 7, and my orchestra teacher had pulled me aside in May and told me that if I wanted to take it seriously, this camp was the next step. I came home practically vibrating. I had already saved most of the tuition from babysitting jobs at the neighbors' houses. I just needed my parents to drive me there and back. My father said yes at dinner that night. My mother said yes too, and then said we would talk about it later. I should have known what later meant. A week before camp started, my mother sat me down at the kitchen table. She had her hair pulled back the way she always did when she was about to ask me for something. My father was working extra shifts that summer, she said. My mother had been offered the chance to go to a bookkeeping conference in Indianapolis, 3 days, all expenses paid. It was a big opportunity for her career. The only issue was that the conference fell on the week my brother was on summer break from preschool, and there was no one to watch him. My middle sister had her ballet intensive. My younger sister had her valet intensive. My younger sister had a friend's birthday weekend. Could I please, just this one time, stay home and watch my brother? It was not just one time, of course. It never was. The conference turned into a week. My mother came back with photos of herself standing in front of a hotel pool with a glass of wine in her hand, and when I asked her about the conference, she could not remember the names of any of the workshops she had supposedly attended. The music camp slot was given to another student. My violin teacher dropped me as a serious pupil after that summer. She was kind about it, but she was also clear. "You cannot keep skipping the moments that matter," she told me. I went home and cried into my pillow, and when my mother knocked on the door and asked what was wrong, I lied and said I had a headache. I had already learned by then that there was no point in telling her what she had taken from me. She did not see it as taking. College was where the financial pattern locked into place. I got into Northwestern with a partial scholarship. I was thrilled. I cried in my bedroom alone the night the acceptance letter came because I did not want my parents to make a fuss and turn it into something about themselves. I worked 2 jobs that first year, one at a coffee shop on Sherman Avenue and one tutoring high schoolers in math on the weekends, and I lived on instant ramen and the leftover pastries the cafe manager let me take home. I made it work. Then my middle sister got into a private liberal arts college in Massachusetts, no scholarship. The tuition was almost 3 times what mine had been. My mother called me one Sunday afternoon, voice high and bright, and told me the news like she was announcing a royal birth. She let me congratulate my sister. She let me ask the polite questions. And then she said, in that same casual tone she used to ask me to watch my brother, that she and my father had been talking. They could not afford the full cost on their own. Could I help? Just a few hundred a month. It would mean so much. I should have said no. I know that now. I have replayed that conversation in my head 1,000 times, and every time the no is right there, sitting on my tongue. But I had spent my whole life being told that saying no was the same as saying I did not love them. So I picked up a 3rd job at a campus library, and I sent my mother $300 a month for the entire 4 years my middle sister was in college. That money went directly to my sister's tuition. My sister, by the way, did not work a single hour during her 4 years of college. She joined a sorority. She studied abroad in Florence one summer. I learned about Florence from photos she posted online while I was working a double at the cafe. When my younger sister applied to colleges 3 years later, the same conversation happened. My mother on the phone. The same tone. The same casual ask. By then, I was working full-time and finishing my last year of school, and I was so exhausted I genuinely did not know how I would survive another 4 years of supplementing someone else's tuition. But I did it, because that is what little women do. They handle it. I graduated from Northwestern with honors. My father came to my graduation. My mother did not. She was at my middle sister's college reunion weekend in Massachusetts. She told me afterward in this apologetic but not really tone that the reunion had been planned for months and she could not move it. She did not seem to understand why I went quiet on the phone. She told me she would mail me a card. She never did. I started at my company as an associate strategist when I was 23. I worked harder than anyone on my floor. I came in at 6 in the morning. I left at 9 at night. My boss noticed. My boss's boss noticed. I got promoted to manager at 26, senior manager at 29, and senior strategist at 31. The leather chair came at 32. I have a small framed photo on my desk of my grandmother, who died when I was 19, and who is the only person in my whole family who ever told me I was allowed to want things for myself. The pattern with my family did not stop when I started making real money. If anything, it accelerated. My middle sister got married at 26. I planned the entire wedding because, in my mother's words, I was so good at organizing. I wrote the toast my mother gave because she was nervous about public speaking. I paid for the rehearsal dinner when the venue increased their minimum and my parents said they could not cover it. I was the maid of honor, and I spent the entire reception solving problems in the back hallway, including a meltdown from the caterer about the wrong cake flavor. I missed my own toast because I was on the phone with the venue manager. My younger sister got married 2 years later, same routine. I did not even bother trying to enjoy it. I knew what my role was. The youngest of all of us, my brother, got married last spring. He was the easiest of the 3. He found a sweet, capable woman who actually thanked me. I cried a little when she hugged me and said she could tell how much I had done for him growing up. It was the first time anyone in our family had said that out loud. My middle sister had her first baby when I was 28. She was overwhelmed. She called me crying at 2 in the morning, and I drove an hour to her house in the suburbs and stayed for the weekend. That weekend turned into the new normal. Every weekend for almost 2 years, I drove out there to help with the baby. When her second baby came, I helped with both. When my younger sister had her first, I added that to the rotation. I was 30 when I realized I had not been on a single date in over a year because every Saturday and Sunday was spoken for. There were men, occasionally. There was a man named Theodore who I really liked, who worked in finance and made me laugh. and who eventually told me, gently, that he could not be in a relationship with someone who was always running off to take care of someone else's children. He said it without anger. He said he understood why I did it. But he also said he wanted a partner, not someone who was already a part-time mother to 4 nieces and nephews. I did not blame him then. I do not blame him now. He was right. The breaking point came 2 months ago. My mother was about to turn 65. She was retiring from her bookkeeping job, the same one she had worked at part-time for 30 years, and my younger sister called me one evening with a plan. They wanted to throw my mother a big retirement and birthday celebration. A trip, somewhere warm. My younger sister was bubbly on the phone, the way she always is when she wants something. She and my middle sister had been planning it for weeks. They wanted to keep the destination a surprise for our mother, but they had everything booked. The only thing they needed from me was the money and a week off work. The number my younger sister mentioned made my stomach turn. It was equivalent to almost 2 months of my salary. I tried to keep my voice neutral. I asked why so much. She said it was a special trip, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing, and that she and my middle sister and my brother had all chipped in what they could, but it was not enough. I asked what each of them had contributed. There was a long pause. My younger sister said it did not really matter, because what mattered was that we were doing this for our mother, and that I was the only one who had the savings to make it actually happen. She said our mother deserved this. She said our mother had been such a wonderful parent and we owed her this. I want to tell you that I pushed back. I want to tell you that I asked the hard questions, but I did not. I had been trained for 33 years not to ask hard questions. I told my younger sister I would send the money the next morning. I did. I transferred the entire amount before I'd finished my coffee. My younger sister sent me a string of heart emojis and a message that said our mother was going to cry happy tears. The plan, as I understood it, was that we would all gather at my parents' house on a Friday morning, and from there we would head to the airport together. My mother would not know our destination until we got there. My younger sister told me, repeatedly, to make sure I cleared my whole work week, that I packed for warm weather, and that I did not schedule any calls during the trip. I followed every instruction. I spent the 2 weeks before the trip wrapping up projects at the office. I told my boss it was a once-in-a-lifetime family event. He smiled and said it sounded wonderful. The morning of the trip, I packed a small carry-on with a swimsuit, sundresses, and the kind of paperback novel I had not let myself read in years. I drove out to my parents' house in the suburbs. I noticed when I pulled up that there were already 3 cars parked along the curb: my middle sister's SUV, my younger sister's minivan, my brother's truck. I figured everyone was inside getting ready. I felt, for the first time in a long time, something close to excitement. I had let myself believe that this trip might be the first family vacation in my entire life where I was actually a guest instead of staff. I rang the doorbell. Nobody answered. The door was unlocked, so I pushed it open and stepped inside. The house was quiet in a way that did not match the cars in the driveway. Then I heard a small voice from the living room. My middle sister's older daughter, who was 6, came around the corner and squealed, "Aunt Eleanor!" She ran at me and wrapped her arms around my legs. I hugged her back. I asked her where Grandma was. She shrugged. She said, "They all left already." I did not understand what she meant. I asked her where everyone went. She said she did not know. She said her mom had told her that Aunt Eleanor was coming and that she should be a good helper. I felt the floor start to tilt under me. I walked past her into the living room. There were toys on the floor. My middle sister's 2 daughters, 6 and 4. My younger sister's 2 boys, 5 and 2. My brother and his wife had a 1-year-old baby who was asleep in a portable crib in the corner. 5 children, no adults. On the dining room table, there was a manila envelope with my name on it, written in my mother's careful, looping handwriting. My hands were shaking when I picked it up. I pulled out a single sheet of paper, the kind of pale yellow notepaper my mother used for grocery lists. The letter said that they had all left for a week at a resort in the Caribbean. It said that the 4 of them, my parents and my 2 sisters and my brother and his wife, had decided that what they really needed, after all those years of raising children, was a real vacation. Just adults. The kids were comfortable with me, the letter said. The kids loved their Aunt Eleanor. The fridge was stocked. There was a list of pediatrician numbers and emergency contacts on the kitchen counter. My middle sister's older daughter had a dance recital on Wednesday that I could take her to. My brother's baby had an ear infection, and there were antibiotics in the door of the fridge that needed to be given twice a day. The letter ended with the words, "We knew you would understand. We knew you would not want to ruin this for our mother. Have fun with the kids. Love, Mom." I read the letter 3 times. I sat down on a chair at the dining room table. The 4-year-old came over and asked if she could have a juice box. I nodded. I opened the fridge for her. My hands were not shaking anymore. They were perfectly steady. I felt something inside me, something that had been frayed and stretched for 33 years, finally snapped clean in two. I called my mother. Voicemail. I called my father. Voicemail. I called my middle sister. Voicemail. I called my younger sister. Voicemail. I called my younger sister. On the 4th ring, she picked up. I could hear ocean in the background. I could hear other people laughing. Steel drums. A bartender calling out a drink order. I asked her very calmly what was going on. She got defensive immediately. She started talking fast. She said it had been our mother's idea. She said our mother had said that I would be fine, that I always was, that I loved the kids and the kids loved me. She said the resort had a no-children policy on the adults-only floor where they were staying, and they had not realized this until they got there, and there was nothing they could do. She said it like it was a logistics problem instead of a betrayal. I said, "You used my money to fly 5 adults to the Caribbean and leave me with 5 children for a week." She said, "Eleanor, please do not make this dramatic. You are so good with them. You are the only one who could do this. We just needed a break. We have been parents for years and we never get a break. You do not have kids. You do not really know what it is like." I said, "I have been raising your children every weekend for 2 years." She said, "That is different." I asked her how it was different. She did not have an answer. She started to cry. She said our mother had been so excited that this was a once-in-a-lifetime trip for her, that I would be ruining everything if I made a fuss now. She begged me to just stay with the kids until they got back. She said she would pay me back. She said it like she had not spent the last decade promising to pay me back for things she never did. I told her I was going to call a babysitting service. She panicked. She said the kids would not feel safe with a stranger. She said the baby was sick. She said her older one was clingy. She said my brother's baby cried with anyone other than family. And then she said the sentence that ended everything. She said, "Eleanor, you have always done this for us. This is who you are. Do not act like it is some big surprise." I hung up. I sat at the dining room table for about 10 minutes. The 5-year-old came in and asked if I would read him a story. I told him in a minute, sweetheart. I picked up my phone. I called the local police non-emergency line first. I told them very calmly that I had arrived at my parents' home to find that 5 children ages 1 through 6 had been left without any adult supervision by their parents and grandparents who had flown out of the country. I told them I was the children's aunt. I told them I had not consented to being their caregiver and that I was concerned about the children's well-being, particularly the 1-year-old who had an active ear infection and required medication. The dispatcher took my information. She said someone would be there shortly. Then I called the state hotline for child welfare. I made the same report. I gave the same information. The woman on the other end was kind. She asked me twice if I was sure I wanted to make a formal report. I said yes. I said the children deserved to be in the care of people who chose to care for them. Then I sent a single group text to my parents and my siblings. I wrote, "I have arrived to find 5 children alone in your home with no adult supervision. I have reported this to the police and to Child Protective Services. Authorities are en route. You will need to come home immediately." My phone started ringing within 90 seconds. My mother first, then my father, then my middle sister, then my brother, then my middle sister, then my brother. I let every single call go to voicemail. I sat down on the carpet with the children. I asked them what game they wanted to play. The 4-year-old wanted to play Tea Party. We played Tea Party. The police arrived about 20 minutes later. 2 officers, a man and a woman. They were very kind to the children. The female officer sat on the floor with the 4-year-old and asked her questions in a soft voice. The male officer took my statement at the kitchen table. He asked to see the letter. I showed him. He read it twice, the way I had. His jaw tightened. He asked if I had the canceled check or transfer record showing I had paid for the trip. I pulled it up on my banking app. He took a photo. The social worker arrived about an hour after the police. She was a woman in her 50s with kind, tired eyes. She looked at the letter. She looked at the kids. She made some phone calls. She told me that because all 5 children had at least one parent or guardian who was reachable but currently outside of the country and refusing to return immediately, this was a clear case of child neglect. She said the children would be temporarily placed with a willing relative if one was available and asked if I was willing to take them on a short-term basis until their parents returned and the situation could be assessed. I said yes, of course. I would not let those children go to strangers. They were my nieces and nephews. They had not done anything wrong. It was almost 10 o'clock at night when my parents and my siblings burst through the front door. They had taken the first flight back. I could see in their eyes that they had been crying or arguing or both for the entire flight. My mother's makeup was streaked. My middle sister's hair was in a messy bun. My brother's wife was carrying her shoes in her hands. My mother looked around the living room. There were 2 officers sitting on the couch. The social worker was at the kitchen table with a clipboard. The kids were already in their pajamas, asleep or close to it in the bedrooms upstairs. I had given them dinner and baths and read them a story. My mother looked at me. She said, "Eleanor, what have you done?" The female officer stood up. She introduced herself. She asked who the parents and grandparents of the children were. Each of them identified themselves. The officer explained in calm professional language that a report had been filed regarding the abandonment of 5 minor children and that everyone in this room who had legal parental or guardianship responsibility for those children needed to come down to the station for questioning. My mother turned to me. She said, Tell them this was a misunderstanding. Tell them you agreed." I looked at her. I looked at this woman who had, for 33 years, taken every part of my life she could pry loose and put it in service of herself or my siblings. I looked at her and I did not feel angry exactly. I felt something quieter than anger. I felt clear. I said, "I never agreed to anything. You left me a letter. You did not ask." My mother's face crumpled. My father said my name in that low warning tone he used to use when I was a teenager and stepped out of line. I did not flinch. The officers asked them all to come along. My middle sister tried to argue. The female officer told her very politely that she could either come along voluntarily right now or be escorted and that the choice was hers. They went. They were at the station for several hours. The social worker stayed at the house with me and the children. We made tea. She told me off the record that she had seen this pattern many times. The eldest daughter, she said, "They are always the most reliable. They are the most reliable because nobody ever gave them a choice." The next morning, after the children were fed and dressed and watching cartoons in the living room, my parents and my siblings came back to the house. They looked terrible. None of them had slept. My mother had a tissue clutched in her hand. My middle sister's mascara was smudged. My younger sister could not look at me. I asked them all to sit down at the dining room table. The same table where I had read the letter. I told them I had something to say. I said, "For 33 years, I have been the one who held this family together. I made the meals when you were too tired. I raised the children when you wanted to go out. I paid for college when you said you could not afford it. I planned the weddings. I took care of the babies. I never once said no, because I was taught from the time I could walk that saying no would mean I did not love you. And every single one of you in some way has built your life on top of mine. You have spent my money, you have used my time, you have never asked what I wanted." My middle sister tried to interrupt. I held up a hand. She stopped. I said, "Yesterday, you used my money to take a vacation that did not include me, and you abandoned 5 children in this house and expected me to pick up the pieces. That is a crime. I did not call the police because I wanted to ruin your lives. I called them because what you did was illegal and because the children deserve to be safe." My mother started to cry. She said, "But Eleanor, we are family." I said, "Family is what you do, not what you say. And what you do, all of you, is take. So I am going to tell you what is going to happen now. The legal consequences are not in my hands. Whatever the courts decide is between you and the system. But personally, I am done. I am going home tonight and I am going to live the life I have been building for myself. I will not be calling. I will not be visiting. I will not be sending money. I will not be picking up the kids on weekends. I am not your free childcare anymore. I am not your savings account. I am not your safety net." My younger sister whispered, "What about the kids?" I said, "The kids have parents. You should try being theirs." I picked up my carry-on, the one I had packed for a tropical vacation that was never really for me, and I walked out of my parents' house. I drove back to Chicago. I cried twice on the way home, but they were not the kind of tears I had cried as a teenager. They were the kind of tears that come at the end of something, not the middle. The legal aftermath was its own quiet storm. My parents and my siblings were each charged with child neglect and endangerment. None of them went to jail, but they all received fines, mandatory parenting classes, and a year of supervised contact with their children pending caseworker assessment. My father lost a key client at his firm because of the news coverage in our small town. My middle sister's husband, who was a mid-level executive at a regional company, faced internal questions about the situation and was ultimately passed over for a promotion. My younger sister and her husband had to sell their second car to cover the legal fees. I cut contact with all of them. The first month, my phone rang constantly. My mother left long, weeping voicemails about how I had destroyed the family. My middle sister sent me angry text messages that went unanswered. My younger sister sent a long apology email that I read once and never replied to. My brother sent me a single text that said he was sorry and that he understood, and I almost replied to that one, but I did not. Not yet. Maybe someday. A year went by. I am writing this now from the same office I described at the beginning. The leather chair is still here. The view of the lake is still here. Some things have changed. I started seeing a therapist who specializes in what she calls parentification trauma, which is what they apparently call it when an adult realizes that their childhood was actually a long unpaid job. I have made 2 new friends, both women in their 30s, who I met through a hiking club. I went to Italy in the spring by myself. I ate dinner alone at restaurants and discovered that I actually liked it. 6 months ago, my mother showed up at my office. My assistant called me to say there was a woman in the lobby asking for me, and when I came down, my mother was sitting in one of the gray chairs by the windows. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair was completely gray. She had not dyed it for over a year, which told me more than her face did about how things were going. I sat down across from her. I asked her why she had come. She said she was sorry. She said it took her almost a year to be able to say it without making excuses. She said she had been in counseling, court-mandated counseling first, and then her own. She said she had realized things about her own mother, about how she had been raised to use her oldest daughter the way she had used me. She said she was not asking me to come back. She just wanted to say it to my face. I listened to her. I did not interrupt. When she was done, I told her that I was glad she was getting help. I told her I was not ready to have a relationship with her. I told her I might be ready someday, and I might not, and that she would have to be okay either way. She nodded. She did not cry. She thanked me for letting her say what she had come to say. She stood up. She left. I went back to my office and sat in my leather chair, and I looked out at the lake for a long time. Sometimes I think about the children. I miss them. I do. I wonder if they remember me. I wonder if they remember me. I wonder if any of my siblings ever told them why their Aunt Eleanor stopped coming around. I have made peace with the fact that I may never know. The children are not mine, and they never were, even though I gave up so much of my life trying to be a second mother to them. What I have learned in the year and a half since that morning in my parents' dining room is this: saying no is not cruelty. Saying no is not betrayal. Saying no is sometimes the only way to tell yourself, finally, after a lifetime of being told otherwise, that you matter too. The little woman that everyone praised when I was a child was not a real person. She was a role I was forced into before I could understand what was happening. The real woman, the one I am now, is messier and more selfish and more tired and more honest, and she sleeps better at night than the little woman ever did. This weekend, I am going up to a cabin in Door County with 2 friends. I am going to read a novel and drink coffee and sit by the lake. Nobody is going to call me asking me to drive somewhere. Nobody is going to need me to fix anything. Nobody is going to ask me for money. And the strangest, sweetest thing is that I am no longer afraid of that silence. For the first time in my life, the silence feels like mine. Looking back now, more than a year after I walked out of my parents' dining room with that carry-on still packed for a trip I never took, I can finally see the shape of what happened to me. Nothing in that house came out of nowhere. Every betrayal had been rehearsed 1,000 times in smaller forms. Every excuse my mother used had been used on me before. And every silence I kept as a child taught the people around me that I would keep silent forever. The truth is that the people who hurt me did not become the kind of people who could leave 5 children alone in a house overnight. They had always been the kind of people who would do that. I just refused to see it because seeing it would have meant admitting that the family I had given my whole life to was not the family I believed in. I think a lot now about the difference between being good and being useful. For most of my life, I confused the two. I thought that if I kept saying yes, kept showing up, kept paying, kept driving an hour on Saturday mornings to bathe someone else's babies, then I was being a good person. But goodness without limits is not goodness at all. It is fear wearing a kind face. The mother who raised me and the sisters and brother who grew up beside me did not learn to respect me because I never gave them anything to respect. I gave them only what they asked for, in the order they asked for it, and the world will always treat you exactly the way you teach it to. What I want to say, especially to anyone who has been the responsible one, the steady one, the one whose name gets used as a verb when something needs handling, is that your kindness is not infinite and it should not be. You are allowed to want things. You are allowed to keep things. You are allowed to spend a Saturday alone with a book on your couch, and you are allowed to say the word no without explaining yourself afterward. That is not selfishness. That is the beginning of a real life. I do not believe that what happened to my family was destiny or punishment or some grand cosmic justice. I think it was simpler and harder than that. They made choices every day for 33 years to take more than they gave. I made a different choice on one cold morning in my parents' dining room. The consequences belong to all of us. Mine have made me lonelier in some ways and freer in every way that counts. I sleep through the night now. I take vacations that are actually vacations. I have friends who do not need anything from me except my company. And I have the strange, late, hard-earned dignity of knowing that the woman in my mirror is finally someone I chose to become instead of someone I was assigned to be.